Talk about that answer. I do, but here's what's a little tricky. She doesn't answer the question around if the GOP is controlling the Senate, if she can't raise corporate taxes, where is she going to get the money from, to expand the child tax credit and do all the things she wants to do? And she says, we just have to do it. And that's great, and that's a campaign promise, but the issue is...
I'm Vince for RTM News. If you enjoy our content, be sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe if you are new. So this week, Kamala Harris did a sit-down interview with MSNBC, and as you could expect, the questions were not exactly hard-hitting for the most part.
The first one, just a fact check, because your opponent
there is
almost
no little
every
job.
day... Okay,
there's no such thing as a little job.
Okay, fair. Because your opponent almost every day seems to be talking about this. So I just want to ask you yes or no. At any point in your life, have you served 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, working out at McDonald's? Yes or no? That's it.
I have.
Okay. Now the other job. But
it was not a small job. Like, I did the fries. I mean, yes, but I did.
She did the fries with a sesame bun. Wow. Real round of applause for that. So, as you can tell, not exactly the hardest hitting journalism in the world. Yet, despite all of this, Kamala Harris still largely gave a lot of the same word salad answers to some of these questions, and it even led to the interviewer going on MSNBC to shockingly and perhaps accidentally admitting that Kamala doesn't really answer questions in her own words. Take a listen.
Talk about that answer. I do, but here's what's a little tricky. She doesn't answer the question around if the GOP is controlling the Senate, if she can't raise corporate taxes, where is she going to get the money from, to expand the child tax credit and do all the things she wants to do? And she says, we just have to do it. And that's great, and that's a campaign promise, but the issue is, if it means we're just going to borrow again, then what we're doing is we're just never addressing the deficit. And back in the days when you were a proud Republican, debts and deficits mattered.
No, the real issue is that you accidentally criticize Kamala Harris, because watch as hours later, this same interview, the insane mental gymnastics here, still does admit that Kamala Harris does not really answer the question, but decides to justify it. And I kid you not, this will be one of the most ridiculous clips you will ever hear, maybe in the history of American journalism. Check it out.
Work, and one could watch that and say, well, she didn't give a clear, direct answer. That's okay, because we are not talking about clear or direct issues.
The question about inflation and prices, this to me is one of the...
She didn't give a clear and direct answer, but that's okay, because she doesn't have to give a clear and direct answer to a question that the journalist asks. I can't believe... Did we hear that right, ladies and gentlemen? That, again, like I said, is one of the most ridiculous thing I think I've ever heard a journalist say in American history. And that's obviously saying a lot. But MSNBC, if you don't know the context here besides them and CNN, is significantly more biased than just a straight-up propaganda network, obviously, for the Democrats. There's a reason why even some people on the left, like the Young Turks, jokingly refer to them now as MSDNC, which is Donald Trump's original nickname. But that is just unbelievable, okay? They cannot get Kamala Harris to actually give clear and direct answers. So instead, what do they say? Well, yeah, she doesn't really answer questions, but it's okay that she doesn't. Absolutely unbelievable. Why not? Let's hear that again one more time so we can be clear about what she just said.
Work, and one could watch that and say, well, she didn't give a clear, direct answer. That's okay, because we are not talking about clear or direct issues.
I don't even know what to say about that. That is so ridiculous that even CNN was kind of calling it out, and you see a little bit of a contrast here, maybe between these two networks. Take a listen as the legendary Scott Jennings goes off on that train wreck of an interview that we saw on Thursday night.
Yeah, I'm still confused about which billionaire rich people are good and which are bad. Trump is, I guess, bad. The people who support Trump are bad. The billionaires that she goes around with, I guess, are good. I think it's a very muddled thing, and I still don't understand. I think today was a miss for Harris. I mean, Joe Biden went on The View today and said he delegated all sorts of authority to her on domestic policy. We know that the Biden administration is not popular on domestic and economic policy. She gave a speech today saying we've got to move past the policies that people think have failed. Well, people think the last 4 years are a failure. And from what I can tell from this interview tonight, which was really a home game, I mean, going on with this particular interviewer, it was like effectively interviewing with her campaign's press secretary. She had nothing new to say on the economy beyond this ridiculous pablum. You want to talk about aspirations and dreams? They're crushed in this country because of inflation, and these kinds of interviews and the day that she had today are not going to solve it.
So, Jane.
But no, that's okay because she made the burgers and the fries with the sesame bun. Wait a minute, that's not a clear and direct answer to the question. Well, according to MSNBC, she doesn't have to. She doesn't have to answer questions or be clear, or I don't know. Now, you may say that, well, yes, it is CNN, but that is Scott Jennings. He's like the token conservative on that network. What does his opinion really matter? And I think that's a fair point, except he is far from the only character on CNN who strongly disagreed with that MSNBC journalist's assessment of the entire situation. Take a listen as a former press secretary for Kamala Harris and a senior advisor to President Biden basically said the same exact thing. It just was not that great.
A little critical of the vice president. I felt like there was absolutely nothing novel about what happened today. I mean, to give an economic speech at an economic club in Pittsburgh, I mean, there's nothing about that feels fresh, new. It's not even consistent with what I even know about her. I worked for as her communications director. So my point is to her and her team, you've got 40 days. The only way you can beat Donald Trump is you've got to take greater risk. That message that happened today at 3 o'clock in the middle of the day, I'm not sure that that's going to move any of the constituents that she needs to target right now, Latino and black men, for example. I'm not sure they heard themselves in that speech. And what I know about the vice president is she actually sees people, and they need to put that on display. But this was not, to me, was not a great...
So all completely fair and valid points. She's not really speaking to people the way she needs to. It was unexceptional, whatever. But remember, you want her to be clear and direct on issues? How dare you? You want her to speak to voters in this country? She doesn't have to. That's okay. According again to MSNBC, here's one last example. Take a listen as Jake Tapper once again discovers that Kamala Harris never really answers the question, does she?
In our 2024 lead, 42 days until Election Day. Voting has already started in some parts of the country. Vice President Kamala Harris is targeting the 7 battleground states with this TV ad.
I'll lower the cost of insulin and prescription drugs for everyone, and I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gouging on food. More than 100 million Americans will get a tax cut.
This ad attempts to be a fairly straightforward presentation in answering the question of how exactly she would address the cost of living crisis, which has not always been the case in some of these more unscripted moments that we've heard from the candidate herself. In interviews with CNN's Dana Bash or the Philadelphia's Channel 6 or Oprah, Harris has been asked to outline some specific things she would do to help working people pay for things if elected. And each time she began, well, take a listen.
When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. Yours is a story I hear around the country as I travel. And in terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and dreams and ambitions for your family.
In some cases, it has taken nearly 2 minutes before Vice President Harris actually arrives at describing her policies. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is here with us.
It's just insane. This is exactly what propaganda looks like, which is, okay, first of all, let's try to interview Kamala Harris. Okay, she doesn't want to do interviews with anyone hostile. Okay, well, let's give her as easy an interview as possible. Oh, wait, she still is not giving clear and direct answers to things. What do we do now? Okay, well, let's just justify it, right? Let's just justify the fact that it's ridiculous. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, I've been Vince with RTM News. Peace.